There are undercover jobs, and then there are undercover jobs. Most of them, you're on the outside. Pubs, clubs, warehouses. You can walk away at the end of the night, go home, hug your kids, sleep in your own bed. But sometimes they put you inside, behind the walls, with the men you're hunting. No backup, no radio, no way out except the front gate, and that's a long way away when the screws lock up for the night. I'm retired now. 57 years I carried the badge. Done things I can't talk about. Seen things I can't forget. But the Belmarsh job, that one stayed with me. Because I wasn't just after a villain. I was after a ghost. A man who'd made fools of Scotland Yard for decades. And I was after something else too. Something worth more than gold. The Great Train Robbery loot. 2.6 million in 1963. Call it 50, 60 million today. Most of it never found. Buried somewhere. Hidden. Waiting for the right moment. And the only man alive who knew where. He was inside. Right where I was going. Ronnie Biggs. They caught him at last. Brought him back from Brazil in 2001. An old man, broken by strokes, barely able to speak. Locked him in the prison hospital at Belmarsh, and the whispers started immediately. The old gang, the ones still breathing, they were scared, because Biggs knew things, and if he talked, well, that's where I came in. Pull up a chair. This one's a long ride. And it starts with me walking through them gates with a new name and a death sentence, knowing that if I got it wrong, I'd be dead. It was 2001, September I think. The world was still reeling from, well, you know. But for us, the job went on. I got a call, quiet meeting, the kind that they don't put in writing. I walk in, and there's a man I'd known for years. Senior. Very senior. He's got a file on the table as thick as a brick. He pushes it towards me. Ronnie Biggs, he says. You know the name. Everyone knew the name. The Great Train Robbery, 1963. The escape from Wandsworth in 1965. Rope ladders, furniture van, the lot. 36 years on the run. Brazil, Australia, plastic surgery, the Sex Pistols, a folk hero to some, a thorn in our side to everybody else. He's back, the senior man says. Voluntary. He's ill, broke, wants to die in Blighty. He's in Belmarsh Hospital wing now, and we need to know what he knows. Here's what the public never knew. The Great Train Robbery. They recovered about 300 grand, maybe 4. The rest vanished. 2 million quid in used notes, never found. There were theories, of course. Buried on some farm, laundered through crooked businessmen, hidden by brains of the operation. A man in the papers called the Minister. But the truth was simpler. The money was still out there, and the only man who might know where, the only one still alive who'd been in the room when they divided it up, was Mr. Biggs. Here's the job, the senior man said. We're putting someone on the inside, not a screw, a prisoner. Someone who can get close to Biggs, earn his trust, find out what he knows about the money, and find out something else. There are people who want Biggs dead, old associates, people who spent 40 years terrified he'd talk. They'll send someone. Maybe they already have. We need to know who, and we need to stop them. I looked at the file, looked at a photograph of Biggs, frail, ancient, a ghost of the man who'd laughed at us from Rio all those years. Why me? I asked. The senior man smiled. Thin. Cold. Because you're forgettable. Because you've done deep cover. And because you got form. And he stands up. He slid another photograph across the table. A mugshot. A name I'd never heard. Meet Terry Finch. Armed robber. 1987. Wound up a witness protection case. Died in a car crash last year. There's you now. We've got the paperwork, the history, the cell number. You go in as him. You do the time. And you get what we need. I should have said no. I was too old for this game. Too tired. But I looked at the photograph. It was Biggs, old, broken, dying. And I thought about all those years he'd been on the run. All those years we chased him. And I thought about the money. 2 million quid. 60 million a day. Sitting somewhere. Waiting. All right, I said. But when this goes sideways, and it will, you better have my back. The senior man didn't answer. Just shook my hand and walked out. And that's how I ended up in Belmarsh. Not as a copper. Not as a detective. But as Terry Finch. Armed robber, doing 5 years for a job I never pulled. Surrounded by men who'd kill me if they knew the truth. Belmarsh High Security. The kind of place they send the worst of the worst. Terrorists, murderers, gangsters who made the craze look like choir boys. And me. First day they put me on a wing with about 60 other men. The noise was unbelievable. Echoes of concrete, shouts from cells, the constant crash of gates. I'd done undercover before, but never inside. Never where I couldn't leave. The moment they locked that door behind me, I felt it. A weight, a finality, like being buried alive. Terry Finch was a quiet bloke. Did his bird, kept his head down, didn't ask questions. That was the cover. But quiet gets you noticed in prison. Noticed by the wrong people. Third day, exercise yard. I'm walking the circuit, counting laps, trying to look invisible. This bloke falls into step beside me. Big, built like a brick shit house. Eyes that don't blink. Finch in it, he says. Terry Finch. I nod, keep walking. I heard about you. The Croydon job. Nicked a ton from that secure van. I shrug. That was a long time ago. He laughs. No warmth in it. We're all a long time ago in here, mate. Question is, what are you doing now? That was the moment. The test. Every undercover op has one. The moment when you either pass or die. I stopped walking. Looked at him. Straight in his eyes. I'm doing my bird. Keeping my head down. And not asking any questions. You got a problem with that? He stared at me. Long enough to make a man sweat. Then he laughed again. Real this time. Almost friendly. All right, Finch. Keep your hair on. I was just making conversation. He walked away. And I knew I'd passed. For now. It took 6 weeks to get to the hospital wing. 6 weeks of keeping my head down. Doing my time. Letting the right people notice me. I volunteered for every shit job going. Kitchen, laundry, cleaning. Eventually, they put me on the wing with the sick and the dying. And that's where I found him. Ronnie Biggs. He was a shadow. A husk. A man who'd partied with the Sex Pistols. Who flipped off the British establishment for 3 decades. Was now just a crumpled figure in an hospital bed. Strokes had taken his speech, his movement, most of his mind. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, while nurses fed him and changed him, and they talked to him like a baby. The nurses were my way in. I made myself useful, carried things, helped with the heavy work, made tea, and I talked about nothing, about everything, about how my old mum was sick and how I hated being stuck inside while she was dying. Standard prison sob story. But guess what? It worked. After a few weeks, one of the nurses, young, tired, too kind for this kind of place, she let me help with Biggs, just sitting with him while she did her paperwork, watching, making sure he didn't choke or fall. And that's how I ended up alone with Ronnie Biggs. First time it was just us. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, watching the machines beep, listening to him breathe. And after a long time his eyes found me, and he smiled, just a little, a ghost of the smile that had taunted us for 40 years. I smiled back. "All right, Ronnie." He didn't answer, couldn't, but his eyes were still alive, still watching, still weighing me up. And I knew then the money wasn't gone. He knew where it was, and if I could find a way in, find the man behind the strokes, I might just get it. Here's the thing about old criminals. They never stop being criminals. Even when they're dying, even when they can't talk, someone always comes looking. For the money, for the secrets, for revenge. I noticed him the first time he visited. Middle-aged, sharp suit, too clean for this place. He signed it as Michael, no surname, and they let him see Biggs for 20 minutes. Private room, no guards, special clearance. That got my attention. I asked the nurse, casual like, "Who's the suit? Family?" She shrugged. Says he's an old friend, solicitor or something. Comes every couple of weeks, stays a while, then goes. Biggs talks to him. She laughed. Biggs don't talk to anyone, but he listens, and he reacts. You can see it in his eyes. That man says something, and Biggs just comes alive, just for a minute. I filed that away, mentioned it in my next contact. A phone call to a dead number, a message left for the team outside. They ran the name, came back with nothing. Michael was a ghost, but I knew in my bones that it was the hitter, the one sent to make sure Biggs never talked, or maybe the one sent to get the location of the money before anyone else could. I'd been inside 6 months by then. 6 months of cleaning floors, making tea, sitting with a dying man who couldn't speak. My cover was solid, my nerves were frayed, and I was running out of time. The visitor, Michael, kept coming. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, and every time, Biggs got a little more agitated afterward, a little more alive. Something was happening, something I couldn't see. One night, I was alone with him, late. The wing was quiet. I brought him water, adjusted his pillows, done the 1,000 small tasks that made me invisible. And then, on impulse, I leaned close. "Ronnie," I whispered. "The money, where is it?" For a long time, nothing. Just the beep of machines, the distant clang of a gate. I thought I'd blown it, thought I'd given myself away. Then his eyes moved, slowly, painfully. They found mine, and his hand, the one that still worked, just a little. His hand moved, trembling, barely controlled. He lifted it from the sheet, and he pointed. Not at me, not at the door, at the wall. At a spot on the wall, just above the bed. I looked, saw nothing. Just institutional green paint, a scuff mark, nothing. But when I looked back, his eyes were different, urgent, desperate. He pointed again and again at the same spot. I don't know what made me look closer, instinct maybe, or the look in his eyes. I stood up, crossed to the wall, ran my fingers over the paint, and there, just there, a scene. A panel that didn't quite fit. I glanced at the door. Clear. I pushed. The panel shifted, and behind it, a piece of paper, folded small, yellow with age. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it. It was a map, crude, hand-drawn, but clear enough. A location, coordinates almost. Somewhere in Buckinghamshire. A farm, a bridge, a spot, marked with an X. Leversdale Farm, the place they'd hidden after the robbery. The place where they'd divided the money and played Monopoly with the real cash while they waited for the heat to die down. The money was still there, all these years, buried somewhere on that farm, waiting. I looked at Biggs. His eyes were closed now, exhausted by the effort, but there was something on his face. Peace. Relief. Like he finally passed on a burden he carried for 40 years. I folded the map, put it in my pocket, and sat back down in the chair. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. I had it. The location, the loot, the whole lot, everything. Now, I just had to get out alive. The next morning everything changed. I don't know how they knew. Maybe Michael had eyes inside. Maybe I'd been careless. But when I walked onto the wing, the atmosphere was different. Men watching. Men not talking. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. I made it to the hospital wing, my safe place. But even there, the nurses were edgy, avoided my eyes. And when I got to Biggs's room, he was gone. Transferred overnight, they said. Medical emergency. No one would tell me where. I stood there, staring at the empty bed, and I knew I had minutes, maybe less. Because if they'd moved Biggs, they were cleaning house. And I was next. I didn't run. Running gets you noticed. I walked, fast but steady, toward the gate, toward the exit, toward the one chance I had. My hand went to my pocket. The map was still there, folded small, pressed against my thigh like a promise. Behind me the shouts grew louder. Finch, stop! I kept walking, 10 yards to the gate. 5. The screw at the desk looked up, confused. Finch, what? I didn't answer, just kept walking, through the gate, into the reception area, toward the door to the outside, the door to freedom. I hit the door, sunlight, cold air, and then hands grabbing me, throwing me down, pinning me to the concrete, faces above me shouting, a knee in my back, my arm twisted, but my hand was still in my pocket, still holding the map. I looked up, past the guards, past the prison walls, at the grey London sky, and I smiled, because they could lock me up again. They could beat me, charge me, throw away the key, but they couldn't take what I'd found. The Great Train Robbery loot, 60 million quid, hidden for 40 years, and now it was found. They kept me another 3 months, solitary mostly, questioning, trying to figure out who I really was. My cover held. Terry Fink was just a bloke who panicked. No connection to the map, no connection to Biggs. The map, I handed it over, had to, part of the deal. They sent a team to Leversdale Farm digging, searching, and they found it. Not all. Some had been moved over the years, laundered, spent, but enough. Millions buried in oil drums, wrapped in plastic, just waiting. Ronnie Biggs died in 2013, 84 years old. Free, finally, after they'd let him out on compassionate grounds. I read about it in the papers, saw his photograph, that smile, that defiant smile, and I thought about that night in Belmarsh, the moment when his eyes met mine, and he pointed at the wall. He knew what he was doing. He'd been waiting 4 years for someone to ask. Someone he could trust. And in the end, he chose me. A copper. The very thing he'd spent his life running from. I often wonder why. Why me? Why then? Maybe he was tired. Tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of carrying that secret. Maybe he wanted to settle things before he went. Or maybe he just liked the look of me. Saw something in my eyes that reminded him of someone. Another life. Another time. Maybe even himself. I never got to thank him. Never got to say goodbye. By the time I got out, he was gone. Transferred. Hidden. Protected from the people who wanted him dead. But I think about him more than I should. Ronnie Biggs. The man who laughed at the world and got away with it. The man who in the end gave back what he'd taken. To Ronnie, wherever you are, I hope they're looking after you. And to the rest of you, thanks for listening. The money's still out there, some of it, buried in places nobody's found, waiting for the next man brave enough, or foolish enough, to go looking. Me, I'm done with that game. I've got my memories, my pension, and this chair by the fire. But sometimes, late at night, I look at that spot on the wall, and I wonder, what else is hidden out there, waiting to be found? If you like this kind of content, you've had fun listening to this video, why not drop the channel a like, subscribe. Anyway, this one's over. Until the next memory comes a knocking. Be good, stay safe, and remember, the law is always watching you.